Welcome to the Wellness Project, where real conversations meet mental wellness. I'm Wilson, your host, here to explore the highs, the lows, and everything in between when it comes to personal growth, resiliency, and well-being. This podcast is all about breaking the stigma, sharing insights, and giving you practical tools to navigate life with more clarity and confidence. No fluff, no cliches, just honest, meaningful discussions that matter. So, wherever you are, take a breath, get comfortable, and let's dive in. Welcome to the Wellness Project.
Hello, this is Heidi.
Yes, hi Heidi. This is Michael Wilson. How are you?
I am good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great, actually.
Great.
Before we get into it, let me give you a proper introduction, if that's okay.
Sounds good.
All right. So the guest today on the Wellness Project is Dr. Heidi Schreiber-Pan. She is an author, speaker, and therapist. Her book, Taming the Anxious Mind, a guidebook to relieve stress and anxiety, is out. And in addition to that, which I'm most excited to talk with our guest today, is she's the founder for the Center for Nature-Informed Therapy. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. If you could just give us maybe a little introduction as to what you're up to today, and we'll kind of flow through it from there.
Sounds good. Yeah, today is actually a beautiful day here in Maryland, and always try to start with my day with walking to talk, and already spent some time outside and a quiet meditation with my birds on my bird feeder, and then just took a nice brisk walk. So being outside is the best way to start the day.
I could not agree with you more, actually. One of the main reasons why I reached out to you also is I'm in a doctoral program for counseling, education, and supervision, and I've always loved the outdoors and really wanted to focus something, related to nature. And the one main statistic that kept coming up for me that really resonated, and it's sad because when I would talk to friends and family about this, they didn't seem shocked by it, but that today the average adult only spends 30 minutes outside per day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that just, I mean, I don't understand why that's not shocking to people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just want to go back to something we started with when you introduced yourself, and that you are counseling, ed, and supervision right now as a doc student. And so our journeys kind of intersect in that moment, because I also was a doctoral student at one point in counseling, ed, and supervision. And one of my projects was to interview mental health professionals and to find out what they were doing for their own self-care. And so they were interested in occupational burnout at the time. And so I started having these conversations with mental health professionals, social workers, counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists. And I would say, this is a field where we're seeing a lot of occupational burnout. And I'm curious to find out, what do you do for your own self-care? And so as I was having these conversations, more and more people would mention things like, oh, I go for a walk, or I go into my garden, or I like to get on my bike and ride outside. And so people were talking about nature in all these different ways. And it seemed to be really, truly the number one thing people were turning to. So I was fascinated by that, because my follow-up question to people was, so since it's been so helpful for you, are you bringing that into your clinical work? And the answer was no.
Right.
And I was really confused by that, because it seemed to be such an intuitive thing for many people to lean towards for their own self-care. But the mental health world, the professionals, were not partnering with nature to help their clients.
Exactly. Yeah, I even, I can't remember who it was, but they would use the term co-facilitator with nature. And I just love that. Love it.
Yes, I just recently got a beautiful piece of art made that says, "Nature is my co-therapist," and I
Yeah.
have it up in my office. And clients were like, "Tell me about that. What do
Yeah.
you mean by that?"
Right?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. So there's, I mean, first of all, at some point I would love to get some like research articles from you or your thoughts on that. I'll kind of shelf that for the audience's sake at this point. But like, what are some of like the obstacles that you find for people connecting with nature?
Yeah, I think for people connecting with nature, the obstacles. I Let's just dive right in. This is a really interesting one. Maybe people are thinking, oh, people don't have enough time, or a lot of their work is indoors, and all that is true. But I want to introduce maybe a little bit of a different lens. So the lens I want to introduce is this idea of the stress tolerance and the lack of it. So we in modern day environments have really become quite addicted to comfort. We need it to be a certain temperature. We have air conditioning. We have heat. We want to be comfortable, and we've been pretty successful at creating this life where most people feel pretty darn comfortable. But that addiction to comfort has turned into a little bit of a lack of being able to tolerate anything that's not comfortable. Well, the natural world is often uncomfortable. It's really hot today in Maryland. And sometimes it gets really cold, or there are mosquitoes, or there are gnats, right? So nature wouldn't be something you would describe as always a comfy, cozy place. It can be, but most of the times it's not. And now you take a modern day human that has invented the drive through so it doesn't have to get out of the car. And you're asking that modern day human to step outside when it's raining, cold, when there's mosquitoes. And people are going to say, no, I'm going to stay inside where it's comfortable. So one of the obstacles that I'm seeing is people just really want to stay in the green zone. Green zone is comfort. That's when I just feel great. And a lot of times nature takes a little bit of stepping out of the green zone. And people are less and less willing to do that.
Right, right. Yeah, I actually just got back from 4 days, camping out on Middle Bass Island in Lake Erie, and,
Hmm.
yeah, it's like, a yearly trip that, some friends and I take, just to kind of,
Hmm.
you know, refuel ourselves, but I always say, like, my favorite part about camping is coming home, and that kind of, embodies that notion of, yeah, it's nice to step out of our comfort zone. Um, for sure, for sure. Do
Yeah.
mhm. Do you see any sort of, like, correlations then also with technology? Because what I'm also curious about is, like, remote work, and
Hmm.
the idea of working from home seems very appealing to some people, but I've been doing like remote work now for about a year, and I it is nice in some ways, but I don't think I fully understood some of the challenges that are associated with that, and going from my bedroom to my spare room and not ever
Hmm.
leaving my house, kind
Yeah.
of a thing.
Yeah. 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 And I think that, the remote world, has made it quite easy to not have to leave the house. Even during COVID, we had our groceries delivered, and so some of that started sticking. And honestly, like if we don't have to, some of us might not leave the house. And that is problematic, I think, because this human body that we have and this human brain that we have evolved over millions of years in direct contact with the natural world. Our skin needs sunlight, our body needs movement. Like there's all these evolutionary pieces that are tied into our story over millions of years. And so now you take this body that evolved outdoors in direct contact with the natural world, and you put it inside a building that has concrete floors and, windows that filter out, sunlight. So it's so detrimental to our bodies even.
Mhm.
And then the one thing I always talk about is like we have this movement machine called our body. Like if you really look at how our body's designed, it's designed for movement. And then you take that movement machine and you place it on a chair for 8 hours, and that there's going to be these like pretty big consequences, not just physiological consequences, but then also, mentally. And our work and a lot of the things we're doing is so sedentary now because we are tied into technology for a lot of people's work.
Yeah.
So that is certainly another piece to it.
Yeah. I just, it's something that I think hopefully like the two worlds can be bridged, I think, a little bit better. I mean, like campfire is a form of technology. There is this sort of overlap, I think, between nature and technology. Um, but that the sort of going back to the issue with comfort and being addicted to that, and there are other benefits to nature. I think people seem to kind of look at it in this black and white thing of either too much or not enough. But I mean, I find it super beneficial just to step outside in between my sessions with people, just to get that kind of, you know,
Hmm.
quick fix that I think nature can be healing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. And there's a woman up in Edmonton, Canada, Dr. Passmore, who has done research on what she calls noticing nature. And so she was working on this project where people were saying, I just don't have time. I believe like nature is a great thing, but I just don't have time to add like 10 minutes to my day to step outside. And so she started doing some research on this invitation that she gave people to just notice nature, not make extra time, but on your walk to your mailbox or to your car, to just take a moment to look around and just notice nature. And then she was asking people to rate how they were feeling in that moment. And what she found was, even though people didn't spend any extra time, they were just asked to notice nature in their everyday lives. And they noticed that that correlation was that people, when they noticed nature, they had more positive feelings. They felt happier. They were ruminating less. And so, when you gave this example of just stepping out for a moment, that shows us, just like with the noticing nature research, is that we actually don't need to be out there for an hour to have any of these effects. It could just be noticing nature on your walk to your car, and it already has an effect on us.
I think you just found the title for my dissertation. Noticing nature. It's got a good ring to it. I like it.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so. And like early on, what kind of sparked this topic for me was just reading the bio stories of faculty at different universities, and I started
Hmm.
noticing, yeah, some kept mentioning, nature or travel. Travel was another big one, I think, in the helping profession. So I
Hmm.
think that aside from the physical and physiological benefits to nature, could you let the audience know maybe some of the other areas?
Yeah, there's a lot of research that shows, I had mentioned earlier this idea of rumination, also known as worrying. And when we get caught up in this playing over and over these negative stories in our head, maybe it's worst case scenario will happen or whatever the worrying thought is, um, that when we actually notice that are ruminating and we step outside into a natural environment, it immediately stops the rumination. So one of the ways that the brain sort of has to reassess if you're safe, right?
Mm.
And inside, it's pretty safe. We don't expect anything bad to happen in our home office. And so it can lead to just the mind sort of start ruminating. But when you walk outside and all of a sudden your brain has to reassess your safety, meaning there's a lot more sensory information coming in, right? There's bird song and there might be movement in the wind or the breeze or whatever it is. And so that sensory information tends to bring you to the present moment at a greater ease, because senses will only tell you what's available here and now. It's not going to tell you tomorrow's lunch is going to smell, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the senses are more activated in the natural world because there's just more of it and it's more nuanced outdoors. So we are seeing people report less rumination when they're outdoors, which can lead to all kinds of things, right? Because a lot of times it's that mental fatigue of trying to figure things out or find solutions to problems, or worrying, right? That can be very fatiguing to constantly think about these things. So there is a component to this, physiology, but there's also this mental piece of people feeling more restored. And that comes from also having less direct attention on something and also releasing rumination more easily.
Wow. Yeah, it's been interesting, I think, talking with clients about like, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, and trying to conceptualize it for people that it does serve a purpose, that natural instinct to sometimes you do need to fight, sometimes you do need to freeze, sometimes
Yeah.
and so like where is that used at? And from what I'm hearing is that it's much more naturally placed in nature. It serves a purpose when you're outside versus being inside.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah. And I think too, you know, what people tend to forget, which is really what we're talking about here with all this evidence, the rumination or the physiology, is that um, people forget that we have this like long history of being, outdoors. And it's really, so I give these trainings because I'm really passionate about training mental health professionals on how to partner with nature into their clinical work. So one of the things that we do at the training, and hopefully I can just kind of describe it and people can follow me. I take 10 volunteers. They come up to the front of the room. They start making a line. They all stand next to each other and they stretch out their arms, right? And then we start talking about how this is a visual demonstration of the timeline of humans, human timeline. And that the 10th person at the very end, that's when we sort of start seeing humans evolve in nature and we see humans arise. And then the 10th person on the other end, their fingernail demonstrates the time that humans moved indoors only 200 years ago during the Industrial Revolution. And so we look at this huge line of people and we have a visual to see all that time we've been outdoors. Only 200 years we've been indoors. And yet, that's a tiny percentage. And so the consequence of it, right, is our brain is not sure what's going on. And our body is wondering why we're not outside.
Yeah. No, yeah. Again, I mean, 30 minutes a day, like to me, I was like, what? That's shocking to me. And yet people seem so sort of complacent with that. Like, yeah, right. And I'm like, well, I mean, it's maybe a little better than a pill or having to go speak to someone if you just went outside a little bit more. I don't know,
Yeah.
kind of a
Yeah. And
thing.
what can our field contribute to that?
Yeah.
Right? If we're doing therapy and we're again sitting in a room, which is what people are doing all day long anyway. What if therapy didn't need to look like that? What if there could be movement? What
Yeah.
if we could be outside?
Yeah, I don't know if you feel this way, but I cannot stand those white noise machines, the ones that just
Mm.
it's like,
Hmm.
I can't stand that noise. I don't know why. It just
Yeah.
bothers me. But then again, being outside and, hearing birds and
Yeah.
it's so if you haven't caught on yet, I have severe ADHD. I'm just a million miles a minute. And it's been kind of, I think, challenging, but then also kind of fun to explore different ways to do like remote work. And
Mm-hmm.
and and
Mm-hmm.
trying to, I guess, like what I'm trying to say is like last week I was talking with my clients about particularly how movement is calming for someone with
Mm,
ADHD. And
mm-hmm. Yeah.
we're constantly being told that we need to learn how to relax, quote unquote.
Mm,
And I have to, remind my ADHD clients, like, that's not you. Like, that's really bad
mm-hmm.
advice. And
Mm-hmm.
movement is calming. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Oh yeah, 100%. I think movement is very calming because if you think about, and I just want to tie it back to emotions, right? So if we look at emotions as energy, because that's what all these trauma experts are telling us, like Peter Levine and Bessel van der Kolk, we all talk about there is emotions have energy, and if you have an emotion that is charged or energetic, where is that energy supposed to go if you're just sitting?
Mm.
Our body knows how to work out energy, work out emotion.
Yep.
So we have an emotional experience, we have this energy, and we go and we walk or we run or whatever. And so then the body is like, oh, okay, we got to discharge this emotion. And so, I always think about like, how do we have these emotions that are happening in the body, and then we're just sitting there, and all that energy just kind of like then gets stored. So I think movement is our ancient understanding of how to work through something, um, and release some of that energetic component of our internal landscape. So I think that can be really helpful.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I don't know that I could put it into words exactly. I mean, maybe you could help with this notion of, uh, like, I was literally watching a documentary over the weekend. Well, last weekend because I was camping this past weekend, but it was they were interviewing this kid who had experienced like a lot of adverse childhood experiences. Let's just say,
Hmm.
but that the kid was saying how essentially violent video games really helped him be able to
Mm,
channel that. And it didn't sit right with me. I don't know that the virtual world will ever be able to replicate what the natural world already provides us. Like
hmm.
I think that's just another trick to keep us indoors. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that sometimes some type of video games they do. There's some movement, right, that
Yeah.
happens, and so might be that sense of like just getting that having anger or rage being discharged in some way. But again, like we used to walk 10 miles a day, not that long ago as humans, not that long ago,
Yeah.
10 miles a day average.
I can barely get 10,000 steps today. That's what I try to get, which is average. That's like nothing to be
Yeah.
proud of.
I know,
Yeah,
it's wild. But I wanted to mention one really, I can't remember I'll, if you send me an email, I'll send it to you. But
sure.
there's research that shows that people that have ADHD, their correlation with the attention restoration theory.
Mhm.
So attention restoration, right, is just that we have this directed attention, and that it's limited. Humans can't, with their prefrontal cortex, we cannot pay attention in an intense way for a long time. But we do longer than we can, and that's when we feel mentally fatigued. Well, what they found was that when people start engaging in nature, even looking just at nature, at the color green or the fractals and things like that, that people are experiencing this sense of restoration. So they can go back then and finish the task. And what they found was that was holding true for people with attention deficit and hyperactivity. That it works just as well. And they have a lot of data that shows that when we can give people these nature breaks, that might or might not include movement, that it kind of restores your attention again.
Yeah, yeah. Have you heard of the Yerkes-Dodson law before?
Remind me, it sounds very familiar.
So I only stumbled upon it like within the last year, and I'm kind of disappointed that, it was never mentioned in my bachelor's or my master's program, but Yerkes and Dotson were two, I think they were maybe Harvard students that were looking at the correlation between stress and productivity.
Mm,
And it's over like 100 years old, their research, but essentially, stress and productivity were believed to have been sort of parallel together and going upward. So the more stressful, we are, the more productive we are. And what the
mhm,
Yerkes and Dotson found is it's actually more of a bell curve. And that on one side, yeah, people need more motivation. They need more stress to get up to be more productive. But then where most of us fall is on the other side of the bell curve, which we need to we need to take a break. Like we actually need more self-care to be more productive, which sounds completely counterproductive. Like it doesn't make sense. So I've been playing around with this notion with even some of my
yeah.
clients and encouraging the ones that do work remotely. Please just take a 10-minute break. That's all. That's all that I'm asking you to do. And
Yeah.
when I would meet back with them the following week, they couldn't believe it that they actually got more work done.
Mm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Yep. That
it's
is exactly right.
yeah,
It's
it's
not so much about hacking away at tasks, right? It's more about putting yourself in a mental state
yep,
to get things done.
yeah.
And that means, to give your brain breaks, just like if you go to the gym and start lifting weights, you don't just lift weights for hours, make a set and then you put it down and then you rest.
Right? Yeah. It's probably why every time I try to work out, I just hurt myself more. It's like I just need to take a break. Uh, yeah. So there isn't a lot of work. I mean, you might be able to help me with this also. I haven't found much research on the impact of remote work on emotional
Mm,
health and mental health. The
mhm,
this
mhm.
this term work life balance, I know, is
Right.
kind of outdated, and we're now using work life flow, which I like a lot better. Um,
Mhm.
and for someone that's in the remote world, I mean, it's a Monday, most people, have to get up early and travel into their office. Fortunately enough for me, you were the first thing that I did today, which is a great way to wake up. I did all of my morning routine things and hop on a call and then I'll see some clients and stuff, but just sort of balancing this new world out, you know.
Yeah. 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 And I think, during COVID, there was a lot of kind of shift to more remote work. And I do get a sense now, and at least here, the people I'm interacting with, a lot of workplaces are asking people to come back at least for some of the days,
Yeah.
because there's this sense of like camaraderie, collaboration, social engagement that humans who are an attachment species, we just need that. We need to be with people. And some people really love this ability to do a hybrid, couple days just being at home and then a couple days in the office where you can, see people and collaborate with people. So I think that is a really important piece when we're looking at that flow that you're talking about. The one interesting thing that we're noticing, and I haven't found a data set on it, but it's just been curious enough and we've seen it enough that seems to be something there. So when we used to run indoor groups, CBT or whatever, just an indoor group helping people maybe with anger management, da da da. But now most of our groups happen outdoors. And what we're noticing is that when groups meet outdoors, that social piece that we're talking about, right? Connecting with others.
Mhm.
There seems to be a difference in how quickly people tend to bond or sort of how quickly they become vulnerable. They also seem to be much closer as a group when we facilitate these groups outdoors. So we've been thinking a lot about what is that mechanism that when people and groups meet outdoors and have this shared experience outdoors, um, there seems to be this sense of socializing in a more vulnerable and in a more attached way than what we're seeing if we read indoor groups.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird time, to have, like, I I'm I would have never thought that I could work remotely when I was a kid, like, that could be a thing, and
Yeah.
here we are, and, yeah, we just don't quite it just doesn't fit nicely. I'll say that, um, what do they call, like, screen fatigue and, feelings of isolation. There's a tech neck, like that kinda, like, like crunched over body positioning. Um, yeah, so one thing that did stand out to me too was, on the natureinformedtherapy.org website,
Hmm.
it talked about online nature classes. Can you tell me, like, a little bit about some of the ways in which you guys are kind of bridging the gaps between maybe remote work and nature?
Yeah, so one of the things we've been thinking about is, one of the beauties of remote work or even, connecting over the miles is that it does allow people to come together would log in from very different, regions of this country and even internationally. And so how do we um, capitalize on that, but at the same time, we're promoting, connection with nature.
Yep.
And so a lot of times what we ask people to do when they're, for example, logging in for a training, a CE training, is that they log in from a place where they can have access to a green space. And so throughout the day, there's invitations that we extend where people are asked to take this project outside, to do this experiment or this activity, this therapeutic activity outdoors. But a lot of times what we're also doing is we are helping people think about biophilic design. So this is this idea when we bring in nature into an indoor space.
Mm.
So this could be through the lighting or it could be the plants. It could also be to bring in a big group of loose nature items like sticks and rocks and leaves and flowers. And so there's also a group of people, obviously, that it might not be safe to go outside, right? Or they might have a fitness level that doesn't allow them to really be walking much. So the biophilic design is really how do we bring nature in so that almost tricks the brain to think it's outside. And so sometimes what we do is, yeah, we, ask people to log in but have access to green spaces and then invite them to go outside. But then we also do activities where people are partnering with nature even in an indoor environment.
Yeah, it I like the point too of it almost being like natural is nature to me. I'm kind of, saying that because of, today with the world of filters and sort of I mean, I'll just say it, it's sort of this fakeness like that I don't think does the same thing. Like I personally kind of think it's funny when people have, like, that Florida palm screen backdrop thing that's behind them, like, clearly I can tell you are not on the beach right now. I would rather just
Hmm.
see this natural
Hmm.
backdrop for you, and that's kind of the line for me is that nature is natural.
Yeah, yeah. And, it's interesting to see that one of the first steps that therapists take after they complete their training is it's sort of a low hanging fruit in some ways, just to start um, changing their office space to invite these natural elements in.
Mhm.
And we've had a person that actually was working in the prison system, and she just changed her office, and she was noticing that even though people didn't have an appointment with her, they would come and they just want to sit in her office
Oh, yeah.
because she had these natural elements in it. And so the power of even for humans, I mean, that's how we're wired. Even indoor nature can be beneficial. Even looking at slides of nature can be
Yep.
beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So like I'm excited because like I'm working from the office today and tomorrow, and then Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, my buddies and I are part of this nonprofit group called Fishing's Future. And we're gonna
Mm.
be running fishing camps for Boy Scout groups for the next 3 days. And
Oh,
I
nice.
yeah, well, and, like, originally, my whole dissertation was going to be around fishing's future because the claim is that they can bridge the gap between, families through the art of fishing, and it's more
Mm.
about bonding than creating these master anglers, you know?
Right.
The problem was I couldn't thread the needle enough to tie it into
Hmm.
counseling education. So, I mean, I can definitely do it more so, but I understand why. So I'm wanting to now again look at the the relationship or the engagement of online counseling educators and nature. As far as I can tell, no
Hmm.
one has looked at that.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, it's really a pioneering field. There are a lot of studies that tell us nature is good for us.
Yep,
I'm not sure we need more of that.
right.
I think we're ready for the nuances and the type of research you're suggesting. That's really the data we need.
Oh, phew, well, thank you for that because it's been a year of writing so far, and I haven't even well, I shouldn't say I haven't even. I've got 1, 2, and 3 just about done. So we're gonna.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was hard. I think for me to be able to tie it into, I think, counseling education in a way that hasn't already been done. Um, which kind of, again, that's what led me to finding you, and then also to looking at the professional themselves. So,
Yeah.
like what you've said, to where people seem to be able to identify nature as a great form of self-care. I don't know that we understand it yet or have it have
Hmm.
it described in all of the color that it can give us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And how it looks different for different people based on their
yeah.
relationship with nature.
Yep.
Right? I mean, you have your connection to nature, maybe around water. Mine are the mountains, and then there are people that it's neither of that. It might be cooking through the food and where the food is sourced from, and how that connects them to their heritage, right? So it's like we have to figure out what are people's connections to nature, and then try to figure out how is it happening for them. Are they bringing it in? Are they not? Because I've had many people that'll say, well, I'm not an outdoor person, so this is not really for me.
Yeah.
And the whole idea is like, yeah, but you are, because you are nature.
Yeah.
You're made from nature. So it might be that the outdoor person that we see on top of a magazine, the outdoor magazine, might not resonate with you, but that doesn't mean you're not a nature person. It's
I
just your connection to it looks different than hiking the Appalachian Trail.
100%. Yeah, 100%. It needs refreshed, the just
Hmm.
being able to be outside. So it looks like too, I'm on the website for the Center for Nature Informed Therapy, and I love all of these current projects that you guys are working on. For
Hmm.
the audience, I want to mention one is a AACPS Nature Informed Therapy Leader Training. It looks like it's focusing on school counselors and nature informed
Yeah.
strategies for students. That's pretty cool.
Hmm. Yeah.
Uh,
Bringing it into the school systems for teachers and counselors and the students, and figuring out, depending on where the school is located, what are our options and how to bring it in. But then also really making that connection between mental health programming that the school counselors might be putting on and how nature can support that.
yep. Yeah, because it needs it. I did a couple years in some school districts, and I mean, it's suicide is the second leading cause of death among kids
Mm,
today. You know,
yeah.
and being able to incorporate not just a mental health class, but mental health all through K through 12th grade. That has not happened yet. So we definitely need to figure that out. It looks like the Boulder Youth Emotion by Design initiative, creating emotional
Mhm.
resilient landscapes for children. That's cool.
Yeah, this was an interesting project. The Boulder Parks and Rec, they got a donation of about a 9-acre piece of land.
Hmm.
And it was located in a place where the people that could walk to that land were coming from sort of an immigration population.
Okay.
And so they were trying to figure out, what are the mental health needs of that community and how could they design a park that would meet some of those through programming or what would they want to offer that would, foster this sort of connection to nature and also address some of the mental health challenges of that group. And that was a really great project to think about um, human needs. And a lot of times when we're looking at asylum seekers or immigration populations, they are um, missing or longing or having loss around the places they grew up.
Yeah.
Place attachment, right? They were attached to the places they were when they made childhood memories. And so the nature looks very different in a lot of times the new space of living. And so we're talking about how can we create new place attachment
Yeah.
to the flora and fauna that's around them now. Yeah.
Sure. The environmental component. When I was doing some of the research, just looking at more urban areas versus countrysides and how much of an impact that can have. So
Hmm.
that's a good one. We've
Yeah.
got Bright Life Recovery, NIT training for addiction recovery.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a recovery center that has a couple locations around the country, and they are basically going completely from a nature-informed lens. So everyone from the line cook to housekeeping to all their therapists
Hmm.
are undergo the foundational training of nature-informed therapy to help everyone understand why this is so important and how are we helping people that are recovering from substance use to start having a healthy relationship again, not just with themselves, but also with nature. A lot of times people's spirituality is tied into their experiences in nature or how they feel in nature. Um, so this has been a wonderful project to really help in the recovery world
Yep.
on how and all the topics we address, right, with the stress tolerance, that it all fits in really well with in the addiction, sort of the recovery world.
Yep. Yeah. And then the Chesapeake Mental Health Collaborative Urban Healing Green Spaces Initiative. There's another one that's looking at the environment part.
Yeah, that one's really interesting because it's a counseling center.
Hmm.
And the idea is like, how can we create green spaces that are right outside the counseling center where therapists could easily take their clients to? And what would those spaces need to look like? So we're thinking about, the humans as attachment beings. Um, we need to interact. You're going to form a relationship, not just by looking at something, but you have to have an interaction with it, right? So we're thinking about herbs and native plants that draw butterflies in, where people can identify birds and seabirds in a their sort of environment. And so it's all about how do we create ways for humans to step back into relationship with nature through interaction, and not just moving through nature as a passive, backdrop, but how do I build relationship? And as we know, humans need to interact.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to design spaces that where people could be interacting with nature.
And I'm assuming probably though, but still have that sense of like confidentiality and privacy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have these sort of different spaces that the counselors can reserve those spaces And then, it's basically that spot is taken at this time slot. And they are, in places where, there's natural in some way noise machines.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a really cool time, I think, to be in the mental health profession for sure.
Hmm.
And lastly but not
I don't
least,
know if you got to, I'm sorry.
no, no, no. Go ahead.
I didn't know if you got to see the New York Times article that was written about us and the work we do, but right before it went live, they journalist had called me and she said, "I just want to give you a heads up. We interviewed the head of the APA, and that person was quite critical of what you're doing."
Really?
And she said, "I just want to give you a heads up." And so I was like, okay, this is anytime you introduce change into a system, there's resistance. So it's not surprising to me. But it was interesting because once they posted the article and people were responding to it by leaving comments, there was a lot of backlash against his comments around that, basically his comments were around this idea that therapy works, it's indoors, why would we take it outdoors? Let's just keep it the way it is.
Wow.
And there's so many problems with that because it doesn't work for everyone the way it is. And humans have so much benefit from being outdoors. And so it was interesting to see that the general public was really having issues with his
Yep.
comments that were part of the story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't want to, put words into your mouth, but I will say that for me in the field, it's been more unlearning than learning. you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
kind of, like I went through the bachelor's and then the master's and then the doctorate program now. So there is this academic book thing, but I
Yeah.
think getting back to the human thing has
Yeah.
been much more beneficial in my own work. So looks. I just want to enter. I want to mention these other two projects for sure because you guys are doing some great work there. The Nature Informed Therapy Reentry Initiative for supporting returning citizens through nature-based healing.
Yeah, so this was a project. One of the clinicians that went through our foundational training was doing this work where people were returning from like prison systems and the reentry into life and jobs and housing. And so it's a beautiful social service that they're offering, and they wanted to see what would happen if they could introduce like a nature based therapy group as part of helping them, you know, solidify their reentry process.
Okay.
And what they're noticing, and what we're noticing too, is if we turn to nature and we have these experiences in nature, it often helps us lead us to a different or deeper understanding of us as humans. Like, what do I want? This sort of, we tend to be able to reflect at a deeper level.
Mm.
And I really do think that's related to a direct attention fatigue. When we do other things, there's just nothing left over for us to be able to just take a breather and think about, like, do I live according to what matters to me? And, am I the person I want to be? So we don't usually on a day-to-day basis have time for that. But nature, since it doesn't tax our direct attention, it allows us to often reflect deeper. And I think the reentry project is noticing that allows people to kind of get their ducks in a row and
Yeah.
understand, like, how do I want to move forward? In addition to them getting these real skills of the reentry process.
Yeah. Well, and just, I mean, in a sense, giving them perhaps like a moment to catch their breath and just kind of be
Yeah.
present, instead of this,
Yeah.
go, 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 go thing.
Yeah.
That could be very, very taxing. I mean, I try to unplug at least once a year where I go to a cabin in the woods of Pennsylvania, and it's
Mm.
just I don't have anything. And like my wife is like, so what did you do there? Like I stared at a wall for like 5 days. It was wonderful. Yeah.
I don't know if you ever heard the story, and it might
Yeah.
just be a story, but it certainly is a beautiful story of Thoreau, Henry David Thoreau. There's a story about him that says that he would go to Walden Pond to basically unplug, but he was sort of like hoping to write
Yeah.
because he was, a prolific writer, and he felt he got the muse when he was in nature. And so he would, go to Walden Pond and he would, write. But there's this story about him that on one of those trips, he was at his little cabin and he just opened the door in the morning and there was this pond right in front of the cabin, and he just started like noticing nature, like looking around, and he was just enthralled by all the activity. It was one of those times of the year where there's so much going on, and the dragonflies and the birds, and then he says that hours went by with him actually doing nothing. And he said that day, because he was just present, he was just being a human being, wasn't doing anything. But he said that was when he felt like he was the most productive
Oh,
because
yeah.
he just bared witness to beauty.
Yeah. It's so true. I mean, I was just recently talking about, I think it's on my last podcast, maybe. This will be 41. So 40 was on this myth of earned rest. Like that I have to be
Mm,
productive to then
yeah,
rest is
yeah, yeah.
completely wrong. Completely wrong.
Hmm.
And so yeah, Walden's Pond, I mean, a great book. It's one of the reasons why I went to Walden University, just because of the name, and it's still an amazing school as well. And then lastly, it's like you guys are doing the therapeutic pathways, a self-guide, nature-based mental wellness experience. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this actually came out of this. We had the privilege and honor to go to Ukraine
Okay.
this spring,
Hmm.
and we were invited to train park rangers and botanical garden staff that have 40 different parks in Ukraine to find ways to bring mental health healing to the population of Ukraine as they're struggling from the effects of war.
Hmm.
And so one of the things we were talking with them about was when people go to the parks, they're already um, familiar with this idea of going through a trail that might have different stations where you learn about the age of this tree and sort of this sense of like a narration of a trail. But we, with therapeutic pathways, this idea is that we still keep this idea of a trail with different stages, but instead of being about the age of the tree, we give people exercises, reflections, and visualizations and all that on their own healing, their mental health healing. So one station might be around resilience, and one station might be about getting in touch with loss. And so we tie it in with the environment. We talk about the oak tree and how it might be teaching us about resilience through the ways oak trees do that with their root systems, and then we tie it back into human healing. And
Yeah.
so we're hoping to bring this to Ukraine when the war ends. But we're starting a pilot here in Maryland with a garden that would like to host the pilot program. And so that's the therapeutic pathways.
Wonderful. So, I mean, again, this like co this co-facilitator with nature. You're not. It's like the whole park and path thing. It does kind of bring me back to realize just the the wonderful things of just exploration and creativity and being present that can happen in nature. That's a bit, scary sometimes because it's
Mm-hmm.
unexpected. I mean, I was literally outside last week and a hummingbird was like right in front of me, and I was able to get my phone out and filmed it, like actually
Mm-hmm.
filmed it. It was mind blowing.
Yeah.
So, you get those little mental health nuggets, let's just say that, from nature. So,
Oh yeah, it's filled with metaphor, and people are so excited when they have these wildlife encounters. And but I think just as we're kind of coming towards an end of our conversation, one thing that we haven't really talked about that's really important for me to mention
sure.
is that we so our training and all the programs we offer, we adhere to this idea of a two-eyed seeing perspective. And two-eyed seeing is a concept that started by an elder of a Native American community in Canada, Albert Marshall. And he came up with this idea that says humans see best when we look out both of our eyes. And he said the one eye is Western science. We need that today because we've learned a lot from Western science. But Western science without indigenous wisdom, you're just not going to see very clear. But if you just have indigenous wisdom, you also are going to miss things. And so indigenous wisdom combined with Western science, this is when we see the clearest. And so our two-eyed seeing perspective, when we think about nature-informed therapy, really important to understand we are deeply evidence-based and influenced by Western science. However, in addition to that, we also are influenced by our understanding and teachings and learnings from indigenous wisdom, which tells us that for as long as humans have been on this planet, they have been in deep relationship with the natural world. And what I mean by that, I mean that nature is part of our family system. It's not something that is a resource. It is a brother, it is a sister, it is a grandmother, it is a grandfather. And so in order for us to really go back to that, we have to start understanding and stepping in to relationship. And so the work we do is based on reciprocity. How do we partner with nature for mental health healing? But at the same time, a relationship is not a one-way street. How do we give back to nature as a form of gratitude for the healing that has taken place in my body? So a reciprocal relationship is really important in every session, every individual session, every group session. We start and end with gratitude for the natural world. And we pick up trash during sessions. We organize tree plantings where clients can come to. So it's partnering with nature, and we are grateful for the healing, but gratitude is not enough. What's the action behind it? And I did want to mention that piece. So thank you for that.
No, perfect. Yeah. Dr. Heidi, I am grateful for you coming on my podcast, The Wellness Project, today. Hopefully I've made a colleague in the profession, and I look forward to catching up with you again.
That sounds wonderful. And I hope you can join the training someday.
Yeah, I'm actually going to look into it right now.
That's wonderful.
All right. Take care. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
All right,
bye.
Yep. Well, that's a wrap for this episode of The Wellness Project. I hope today's conversation gave you something to think about, something to feel, or maybe even something to change. If you found value in this episode, don't forget to subscribe, share, or leave a review. It helps more people join the conversation. And if you have thoughts, questions, or a topic you'd love to hear about, go ahead and reach out. It's thewellnessprojectllc@gmail.com. Until next time, take care of yourself, stay curious, and keep growing. This is Wilson signing off. See you in the next one. If you are considering therapy or in the market for a different mental health therapist, you should contact Cornerstone Behavioral Health. At Cornerstone Behavioral Health, the goal is to be a global voice for trauma recovery. They are a 100% telehealth agency providing mental health counseling and medication management for adults in Ohio. That's right, they offer a free consultation and accept all major insurance companies or private pay. If you go to cornerstonebehavioralhealth.org and click on the Services tab, you can read the bios of the therapists and even request one of them specifically to talk more about your mental health needs. To learn more about Cornerstone Behavioral Health, just visit cornerstonebehavioralhealth.org to register for a free consultation and response within just 48 hours. Hope starts here.